Meet Susan Walsh, the classification guru. It's hard for me to say that, but fixer of dirty data. Again, maybe dirty data. Susan, we've all known you. You are phenomenal at data classification, taxonomy expert. I believe you're also the data IQ champion, if I remember.
100, yeah, and the champion for 22, 23 as well, yeah.
That's fantastic. And I've seen your TEDx talk. It's very real, all right?
Yeah.
So to say the least. But last but not the least, if we get some time, I'd love to connect with you on the lip syncing part as well. But we'll get to that later.
Absolutely.
Susan, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Maybe a 30 seconds about yourself. I think most of them know who you are, but real quick.
Yeah, very quickly, grew up in Dundee in Scotland, got a degree in commerce, worked in sales, had a clothes shop, went bankrupt, went to work for a spend analytics company, and then formed the Classification Guru nearly 7 years ago, and can't believe it, but still in business, fixing
Still
lots
successful.
of dirty data.
Oh yeah, there we go. There is the dirty. Fantastic. Susan, maybe just you talked about your journey, maybe a little bit more details of why you became the classification guru, like what led you to it?
When I started working for the spend analytics company, I was there for 5 years in total. I started when it was just myself and then ended up growing a team of managing 14 people.
Wow.
And the thing that I saw the most was, now in procurement 7 years ago, most companies didn't have their own analysts or BI departments or anything like that. All that was all outsourced. All the dashboards were done somewhere else. And I could see that people were paying a lot of money for these sexy dashboards, but actually 90% of the work behind it was cleaning and classifying the data to get it into a place to go in the dashboard. And when it was time to move on, because I hadn't come from a procurement background or a data background, I didn't know anybody in the industry. I didn't know where I could get a job doing the same thing. I thought, well, I really love what I do and I know I'm really good at it, but I'm only good at this one specific bit. So there must be companies out there who don't want the dashboards, they just want the data cleaned, and then they're going to take it and do it themselves. And maybe I was a little bit ahead of the curve with that, because actually, as it turned out, most places have now taken their analytics in-house, but yet nobody still really knows how to classify or clean the data particularly, and nobody really wants to do it either.
I think that's the most important thing. And tell me, why is it that important to classify? I know you're working on customer and supplier, amongst other things. Why is it so important? What's the business benefit of classification?
So in procurement, for example, it impacts the visibility that you have on where you're spending your money in your company. If you've got 5 different versions of PwC and PricewaterhouseCoopers and PwC, you might look at one version of that and think, oh, we're spending $50,000. But actually, when you combine the 4 or 5 different versions, it's more like $500,000. Tells you a huge different picture to just looking at that one instance. That impacts negotiations that you have with suppliers. You might find that you have 50 suppliers in office supplies. Well, you only need maybe 5. So you could rationalize that down. It can help with things like spotting fraud, but any kind of categorization can be applied to any space. If we think about retail and e-commerce, every time you go to a retailer, and say a clothing retailer, and you want to buy some black trousers, that's all come from a taxonomy and being categorized. If somebody doesn't categorize the black trousers, you're not going to be able to find them very easily. And if they've been categorized in the wrong place, then it's going to be even harder. I have specifically searched today for an orange dress and couldn't find it. And I know it's there somewhere, but I don't know what they've decided to call it.
Wow. So I think in this era of hyper personalization, as you mentioned, e-commerce, it's absolutely paramount that you have data classified appropriately, tagged appropriately, so that when you feed it off to the front end systems, which is making all the decisions on the fly, appropriate information goes to the appropriate people, right?
Yeah, I tried orange dress, neon dress, nothing.
Nothing, huh?
No, yeah, I'll have to go back and look for it again later. I mean, it could be that it's now sold out, but it happened before one winter. There was this beautiful furry jumper,
Okay.
and I couldn't find it under furry jumper, and I literally had to select all the jumpers and cardigans and look through hundreds of them to find what I needed.
So it's interesting you bring it up. Now let me ask you this: your definition of this jumper may not be my definition, right?
You'd call it a sweater, yeah.
Right, that's right. So when you're classifying data, how do you align on words, on meaning of
Well,
those words?
funnily enough, I've actually done that for a client. They have a global taxonomy
Yeah.
for food. So
Yeah.
we had to have discussions with all the different areas around the world on, is it crisps or is it chips? Is it
Yeah.
fries or is it chips? Is it a biscuit? Is it a cookie?
Wow.
We had to, and then we had to, make that definition, and then that is a global rule for the whole business.
That is, yeah. So that,
But we had to listen to everybody's sides because everyone had an argument about,
I mean, personally, I had the same problem. I moved from India to here,
yeah.
and I took a course before I moved here to actually start translating these things. This is way back in early 2000s, right? There was a course, an English course, that they translated the words we use in India.
Like quite a lot of kind of English words too. So
that's right.
Yeah, my brother lives out in the US now, and yeah, even when I've been over, it's like, where's the lift? And they're like, what?
Exactly.
The elevator.
Elevator. That's right. And then we used to call it the gum, like the glue, the gum, right?
Yeah.
And in here, gum is bubble gum.
Yeah.
So it's a very different. You're absolutely spot on, and I think the real world is a lot more complicated than the simple examples we're giving.
It's funny you say that. I literally did a post about that last week. I found out there's a word in Scotland that's only used in Scotland. It's out with.
What?
Now I thought out with. So the London is out with Guildford, so it's outside of Guildford.
Oh, wow.
Turns out that is a specifically Scottish word, but then people started sharing their own words regionally, some from the US, some from the UK, and it was really interesting that even within the UK there are so many regional variations for the same word.
Wow, that is interesting. So tell me this: what are you shared some of the complicated and the funniest words that you've seen in classification. What are some of the problem that you see because of this? Like, because there's no clarity in classification, I'm sure you would have seen tangible business issues you're trying to solve, isn't it?
Yeah, whether you're categorizing products, sales, things you've bought, if you have categorization across multiple items instead of in the one place, then you're not getting the full picture. Now, say you're looking at one product and it's categorized in hardware, and it's nuts, and somebody's accidentally put like hardware nuts, like nuts and bolts, but say somebody's accidentally classified some of those nuts as like food nuts.
Okay.
Some of your spend is going to be sitting under food rather than hardware. And when you're looking at everything, you're thinking, oh, we're low on stock, because if it's inventory stock, you think, oh, we might need to order more of those in. But what you don't realize is you do actually have enough stock. It's just that it's been tagged under the wrong kind of nuts.
That's right.
So lots of things like that can happen.
So now, these are very interesting examples. Do you have a process or a framework that you follow, Susan, to figure this out?
Yeah, I created the coat methodology.
Okay.
So make sure your data has its coat on, like a jacket.
Yeah.
So first of all, your data's got to be consistent. And I see this a lot because we work with a lot of US companies, and also any organizations that have multiple people working in the organization. It's open to inconsistency because everyone's doing things a slightly different way. Everyone's got their own opinion. Even there can be, sometimes there's more than one right answer in a taxonomy that you use to classify data. So you have to set those rules and be clear. I mean, I've even heard stories of like the customer in an organization can mean one thing in one department and something completely different in another department. So you have to set out those rules, those standards, those procedures, and make sure everyone's doing everything the same way.
Story of my life. Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah.
Once it's consistent, it's then got to be organized. So think about a messy closet. You know, you've washed your clothes and you've just shoved it back in your wardrobe, and you're like, oh, okay. You go back next week to look for it and you can't find it, and then it's all crumpled up, and you're like, oh, I've got to go and iron this now. But if you had, you know, neatly put it away when you had washed it, and it was by style, by color, etc., you could have just gone in and got that information, that clothing. And data's the same. You could just, if you've got it organized, you can say, I'll have this one, I'll have this one, I'll have this one. And if someone's asking you for a report, you're not spending hours trying to patch data together and categorize it all to get something, because if you've already got that set up, you can just go in and get it. So much easier. So that's organization. Then it has to be accurate. So again, you have to decide what accurate is within your department or your organization. But once you have your consistent, your organized, and your accurate data, it then becomes trustworthy. And that's the biggest thing we hear is, oh, we don't trust the data, we don't think it's right. So by using the data coat methodology in our work, we make sure that we apply that to the client's data. And then obviously it's up to them to then go forward and keep that data coat on once they get their data back.
I like it. So essentially your code methodology, do you follow that as a sequence of steps, or can you parallelly process the steps?
Not for like classification of data. So for that, we do have a different step. So the first thing we would do is pull the different data sources together, make sure the columns are all standardized, bring it all together, deduplicate anything. We would then normalize those suppliers. So again, you know, PwC, P.W.C, PricewaterhouseCoopers would all go into a new column called PwC. Dell Computers, Dell Software would all become Dell. So we do all that. Once we've done that, we would then start to classify, and depending on the quality of the data, we can do that in a lot of detail or not so much detail. So then we'll go through each invoice line description, and we use a tool called Omniscope, and I've kind of developed a methodology of cleaning over the years, so the team are all trained in how to do that. So then we would go and classify that data, and we might need to update the client's taxonomy as we're doing that. So then that's all split up between the team, comes back together, gets put together, but obviously different people have been working on different parts of the file, so it could be inconsistent. So it comes back together, one person then reviews the final whole file. I'll then have a quick check of it before it goes out the door, and then it goes back to the client.
Fantastic. Now, with you know, and I have to ask this question, with the adoption of Gen AI, you know, Chat GPT interfaces, does that simplify your job? You know, or does the human part of it is still, you know, the analysis has to be humanified? You know, whatever the right word.
It creates more opportunities for business for us personally.
So more data meaning more confusion is what you're saying.
Gen AI, any type of AI, has to learn from training data sets, and the training data sets have to be clean. And how do you get those clean? You need people to do that. We have tried dabbling with ChatGPT to normalize suppliers. It was horrifically bad. What I would say is, in the space that we're working in, it's very good on fact-based information. So if we want to know the parent company of another company, so like who's the parent company of LinkedIn? It's Microsoft. Stuff like that, it's great at finding. If we asked it to normalize like LinkedIn Corporation, it probably wouldn't do it. And so there are certain things that it's good for, and there are certain things that it's really not good for, and it's just knowing which ones to use.
Gotcha. And you know, of course, there's always the most reliable, trustworthy tool, Microsoft Excel, right? The largest database in the world.
Honestly, sometimes that is the best option. Like if you just need to do a quick VLOOKUP or a quick text to columns, like there is nothing wrong with using Excel. It's just being careful with it. I think that's where people are not trained enough on the dangers of having multiple filters on and trying to copy and paste things. You know, that's where a lot of problems start happening.
100% agree with you. And I think even, and I don't know if this is true in your line of business, Copilot, you know, let's say Microsoft.
I've got that on my computer, but I daren't use it.
Useful, not useful? No? Okay.
Well, like every time, once I think I opened it by accident and it just crashed everything. So I was like, okay, well, let's not bother.
Gotcha. All right. Well, shifting gears, you launched a book about 3 months ago, right? Between the spreadsheet.
Yeah, but it was a lot longer than 3 months ago.
Oh, it was, man. It was almost new. But how's it going? How are
Yeah,
you?
no, it's good. It's coming out for 3 years actually. That's crazy.
3 years?
Yeah, I know. I'm still traumatized from writing it, to be honest. But yeah, no, really
Wow.
proud of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've had some great feedback from it.
So I will tell you my story. Of course, a lot of my people that I work with are graduating from college, right? So they want to be this data analyst type. For all those graduates, I've actually given your book. A couple of them have given me feedback that
wow.
the way you help them think about spreadsheets have actually been very useful for them to accelerate. Like you said, they all still use
I wish
Excel.
people would tell me that more. That's really good to hear.
I will definitely ask them to reach out in your LinkedIn profile, and at least kudos to you. But that was a little positive for me, that instead of me teaching them how, it's not about using spreadsheets. That's not the goal, right? The goal is, how do you use spreadsheet if you're a data analyst? That's what I think, your book taught them, which is fantastic. So kudos to you. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's, you put that out there, and then quite often, and unless you bump into someone, you don't really hear. So yeah, that's that proud moment. I really did want to talk to people on a really kind of basic level, because so many people don't know and are too afraid to say they don't know. So I just went in at, like, this is how I would explain it to my dad kind of situation, and also I think it's really important. There are a lot of analysts that come out of uni and they don't know how to talk to the business, or the business, what business data looks like, and then it's terrifying.
Tell a story around that business data, right? I think that's what your book teaches them. Again, so you've been a part of the Data Avengers crew for a while, isn't it?
I have, yes.
Yeah. How's that going?
I have retired now.
You have retired.
Yes.
All right. That crew is making a lot of noise out there in LinkedIn.
They are doing a fantastic job of flying the banner for all things data and fun and awareness. Right. Yeah.
I think that's what excites me, right? There's a group out there who actually wants to make data fun. It's Susan, it's a
and passionate about
job.
it as well. They're so passionate.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's a very thankless job. We're always behind the scenes. We're the plumbers. We fix the back end.
Yeah.
And nobody notices because there's always these cool tech like AI and analytics. The sexy visualization. That's what the CEO of the company looks at.
Yeah,
but what about the work that's happening in the back end? Go ahead.
Well, yeah, but also don't underestimate how much work the Data Avengers actually put into turning up and just looking great. And that's one of the reasons why I had to retire, was because I'm running a business and I can't give it my full attention when I have to look after my business as well. And then we were talking just before we started recording that although I work with data and talk about data, I don't get business from the data space, so I have to spend a lot of time at procurement events because that's where my clients come from. And as I'm finding this year, there's a lot of clashes. So for the first time in, 5 years, I won't be at Big Data London because I'm going to be in Barcelona at a procurement event, so it's challenging. There's just so many events out there.
It's actually very exciting too, Susan. I was talking to Samir Sharma a little while ago.
Yeah.
And one of the things that came up is this notion of tying data back to the business.
Yeah.
It's easy to say, very difficult to do, but in your case, your business itself is actually tying data back to the business, and you're getting the business from the procurement leaders.
Yeah.
That tells you you're actually monetizing the business value as a part of your.
But it's still a huge challenge to. I think it's moved forward a lot in the last couple of years. People are now willing to pay a little bit, and I'm like, tens of thousands of dollars maybe. Sure. But what they get could be millions of dollars of savings from that. And I think that's where there's been a bit of a hurdle. It's not a tangible benefit until you've done the work. And how do you upfront show someone that you're going to save them loads of money? It's very hard to prove until you've done the work, but you can't do the work until you get paid. You know, it's
That's right.
tricky.
The return on investment is a little tricky there, because to your point, you got to do the analysis to figure out what that return is, but you got to get paid for the analysis.
I'll tell you where it's even more challenging. We did a couple of projects for manufacturers last year and cleaned up their material master data. So we're talking 20 to 40,000 items. Now that's a lot of money, because it's people have to literally manually move around words and things. The time and problems that it will prevent by doing that will be huge, but people actually willing to invest in it are few and far between.
No,
they're the ones whose business will be successful because they can see the opportunity.
That's right. No, you've come up with a very creative way of using your skill set, and also, you know, what I've been saying to my clients: tie your data back to the business value. So kudos to you, Susan, on capitalizing on it, on monetizing on it. I truly wish that you get heard quite a bit as well.
Thank you.
You know, that there are certain aspects of you that is fun. Like, we'll jump into lip syncing right now, which is fabulous. I think you've found yourself a niche. That's right. Any future on hard rock bands at all?
No. I have to say I've been a little bit slack on the new lip syncs recently, but for me it's got to be appropriate. I've got to try and tie it into running a business or procurement or data if I can. I like to do them at events and get other people involved, so I'd rather do quality rather than quantity. But it started during lockdown as a bit of fun, and it kind of got out of control, and now I go to events and the first thing I say is, "Oh, are you the lip sync lady?" or "Oh, you're the song lady." And I'm like, well, okay, great. Please don't buy my services. It doesn't.
I don't run a band. I run a company.
Well, yeah, but it doesn't put people off, or it doesn't put the people who still, you know, see the opportunity. So it's been good.
At least you've got something that you're known for, right? And again, that's an icebreaker right there.
Yeah.
Certainly. You know, I enjoy all the videos. It takes your mind off of work for a little bit. You know,
when honestly, I meet people, it's never awkward. People are always really warm and friendly when they meet me. So it really does open doors.
Absolutely, great icebreaker. All right, Susan, any advice from you? I know you're an entrepreneur, but there are a lot of people, like I said, who read your book, who want to be in the data analysis, especially good AI needs good data. What's your word of advice for them?
Oh, great. I did a post on this recently, and I also spoke to some students at a university here in the UK. I think it's really important that it's okay to say I don't know. Like, be inquisitive, ask lots of questions. Failing is the best way to learn. I fail every day at something and learn. You just like get over it, move on. As long as you don't make the same mistake again, you're learning. These things will all happen. Just embrace it. And also, there are so many different paths in data now. Like, I might be an okay coder. I would be a terrible data scientist because I'm awful at maths. But I work with textual data and patterns and categories. So I found something that worked for me. So if you're in something and you're not quite sure, try something else. You know, there's something in data for everybody.
Absolutely. No, that's well said. I think you have to try it. You've said this loud and clear in your TEDx talk as well, if I remember correctly, about failure and how, you know, your life journey has taught you a lot of lessons. So, you know,
and you know what? It just means something's better around the corner if it doesn't work out.
That's right. No, absolutely. Susan, I enjoyed having this chat with you. Thank you so much for coming on to my show.
Yeah, thank you.
Really appreciate it.